Want more stories in your life without adding to your TBR? That's where Audible comes in. I use it for the original novellas, the Plus catalog like Deanna Rayburn's Veronica Speedwell series, and those audiobook sales that you can beat. Right now, Audible has a special offer for new and returning members. Click the link in the show notes to see what deal you'll get and start listening today. Hi, Ilana. Welcome to the What's Your Next podcast.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm excited to be here.
So happy to have you here. I was telling you before we get started that I was so excited to see a pickleball romance when you're one of the first few books that came out with the sport. So as a romance, which is exciting. So
Yeah, I was
uh,
pretty excited about it too because I was looking for something to read that was like pickleball oriented. And I did find some smaller print things, but nothing by one of the traditional publishers, a major publisher. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my niche. This is my opportunity. God,
yes.
I wrote so fast.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll talk about your pickleball story because we kind of have to know that question.
Right.
You know? So tell us a little bit about yourself other than pickleball. What else do you enjoy your time?
Okay, so one of the things that I did for a long time was I was in theater and I was an actress and I did stand-up comedy and that's kind of an improv comedy and I studied comedy at Second City in Chicago. So that was one of my sort of backgrounds and foundations and I've always kind of wanted to do creative things with my life and I wanted to find different venues to express that and especially ones that I had more control over, like writing, whereas in auditioning and stand-up you're so dependent on the audience that shows up that night or whoever is running the audition that day and what they're looking for. So I did find this wonderful creative outlet like in writing. And also another thing that I've just recently come back to that I really enjoy is writing songs and singing and playing guitar and piano. And I've recently started recording some of my music and playing in front of an audience. And it's been a really awesome awakening for me, a creative awakening for me, and a new outlet for me. And I'm loving just this freedom that I now have a little bit when I am not going to the teaching job that I had for 32 years. And I have some
Mhm.
time to follow these real, true passions. So that's been wonderful.
I love this. So I have to tell you, I did improv. I took a couple improv classes thanks to my therapist because
Uh-huh.
I'm excited. And she was like, nope, we got to do improv because you're going to let it go. It's just you end and you keep going, you keep doing. And so I actually moved to Chicago February 2020, like February 28th, 2020. So two
Oh
weeks
my
before the
gosh.
pandemic.
Right before the pandemic. Oh my
So
God.
I spent about a year and a half. And one of the things I wanted to do while I was in Chicago was to take a second city class. So I was like, I just might as well just take a class. Like I was in New York City and I was taking some of the improv classes there. And it was like, it's like a whole community. I figured that's a great place to meet creative people. And
Mhm.
obviously it will help me with like podcasting because I've been podcasting for some time by then. And unfortunately I had to move out of Chicago because my New York job hired me back. So I was like, well, we're gonna
Okay.
take it. But they don't
Thank
want to
God.
pay taxes to Illinois because so they were like, can you just move to New York? And I was like, no, can we move to Florida? I was like, yeah, maybe I'll move to Florida. And so I moved to Florida. And so that was my regret. I was like, I want to just like, if I had the money to spend like a
Yeah.
summer in Chicago, because that's the ideal time you want to be in Chicago, summertime, take a couple second city classes, enjoy the era and everything. But yeah, that was like my big regret was like, I moved to Chicago the wrong time. It was a beautiful city, great
That is
place.
crazy timing. That was just such crazy timing. Well, all those
Really was.
awesome as well. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in Florida myself. But um,
Really was.
I have to say, one of the things that really stuck with me about those Second City classes in the conservatory program was that I had a teacher who said something to me, two things that stuck with me, and I use them all the time in my thought process. And the first one is I really felt like people were always asking me, "Oh, you're an actress? What have I seen you in?" And the question made me feel terrible because
Yes.
you wouldn't have seen me in something. You might have seen me in a small play, or you might have seen me in a commercial for healthcare, but you wouldn't recognize me from some big film. So I was always answering that question, well, I just did a and instead, what my teacher said was, in order to call yourself an actor, you just have to do something that supports your theater every
Mhm.
day. In a sense, you can look at ads for auditions. You can get your headshots taken. You can practice a monologue. And I thought the same thing for the, I think, 14 years that I worked on trying to become a published author. I kept working at it and I kept persisting. And that voice was in my head. I am a writer. Not I want to be a writer, but I am a writer. Whether I'm published, I'm not published, I'm still a writer because I'm working on this craft every day, even if it was writing query letters or even if it was perfecting, doing research or whatever it was doing, writing the response to a silly writing prompt and doing it with my students as I taught English. I had to do something that made me say, I'm a writer, because otherwise,
Yeah.
such an important part of my identity would disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in some ways, I think it's hard. I think about identity a long time. It's sometimes removing the day job identity, like having a job, having an identity that's not, what do you do? Because it was very, I was in New York. So New York is very like, what do you do? What do you spend? Like, and I had to remove that because I was like in major career pivots, major changes and stuff like that. And you have falling into the job that I have. And it was like, I don't know. I was a temp. I was a professional temp for 5 years.
Oh,
And
yeah,
even
sure.
that identity of like who you are as a person and how you think about it, it's like you have to hold that craft, but also own it. And it takes time to own something that because you have judgment. Other people have an opinion about what you wanted to do. Like for a
Right.
long time, I hid that I had a podcast. I've been doing this podcast for 10 years. And let me tell you, it's not like one or two episodes. It's like 900 episodes. I've interviewed at least 500 authors. And then it was
Right.
like, oh, just a little on the side. And I was like, no, I have listeners. I have a relationship with authors. I'm selling books. I'm helping
Right.
the publishing community in my own way. And it's really like, I think it's like connecting the dots and acknowledging that it is okay to have a creative pursuit. It is okay to have a creative passion or something that you just enjoy doing for the sake of enjoying doing it. And
Right.
then you want others to consume it because you make the world a better place because of
Right.
it.
Right. And I think I had this conversation, same thing about my music, which was
Mm.
when I'm writing music and I've got this sort of all these songs that I've written and I do nothing with them. And my friend said, well, why don't you come and I have an open mic and you can come and you can perform. And I'm like, oh, nobody wants to hear this and blah, blah, blah. But that's just not true. That's your brain telling you that this is not good enough for public consumption. But you just have to, if you put it out there and you tell yourself this is good enough for public consumption, somebody's going to find value in it. I hope.
Yeah. And I think that's the part. It's like we're taking that away from others that
Mhm.
can bring joy, you
Right.
know? Like, I think it's like there's a purpose. I think it's like we are our own sabotagers. Like, we're like, but if allow yourself just to do it and just to share it and pursue now doing short form video. And it was like, I had this block because it was like, I'm not perfect. I'm not this. And it's like, what's the point? But I'm still sharing the information. I share a tip of how to find actual books that you're like, you're not overwhelmed. And they were like, that's brilliant. I did not know how to do this. And I was like, but I know how to do it. It's like I can connect that. And there's
Right.
it beyond of like what my head would think and what the space. And I think sometimes taking those creative pursuits like improv and allowing yourself to just take away that headspace and just show up and just do what you need to do and just go in. No,
Yeah.
no buts, no this.
Oh, yeah, the yes and idea. I mean, that was another thing I learned through improv was that instead of saying no to something, that you just say yes, and I'm going to try it this way. And the
Yeah,
other thing I learned was that same teacher who said to me, who said to the whole group was, there's no such thing as acting. There's only reacting.
yeah,
And I thought that was so interesting. And I read something really similar in Stephen King's book on writing. He was saying he never plots out his books. He just writes them because the characters are going to decide what happens next. You, as an author, are just there to observe and write it down. And I thought, wow, that's so much like improv in that it's so much like what I want to be able to do, have my characters be really reacting, have the situation, whatever's presented to them, affect what happens in the plot, not me deciding what the plot is going to be and then trying to squeeze the characters and the storyline into this series of events, but rather the why it happens and why they react to each other.
Love this. I love these writing tips. All right, we got to talk about a pickleball story. When did it get started? Where do you play? Like, tell us all about it. And what is pickleball? For those
Okay.
who don't know what pickleball is, because we do have an international audience. So,
Right. Okay. So pickleball is like tennis, or ping pong, but it's as if you're like standing on the ping pong table and
okay,
playing over you
yeah,
pretend you're miniature and you're on the ping pong table
yeah,
and you're hitting back and forth to each other and you play with a partner. So there's four people on the court, two on each side at all times. So it's a very social sport. And it's a sport that because the playing size is about a third the size of a regular tennis court, total or half the size of a regular tennis court, there's a lot more finesse and it's less about running around trying to get the ball. So it's about there's a really great learning curve for somebody. I didn't start any kind of athletics at all until I was in my 50s. So it for someone like me to try a sport that has eye-hand coordination was a real challenge. And one of the reasons I got serious and I would say kind of obsessed with pickleball was because of the pandemic. And yeah, so what can you do to be social? I'm like a serious extrovert. And the idea of being basically isolated in my house was super stressful just because I really wanted to be around people, and it was really crushing for me. So I did find out that people were playing pickleball on these courts because you could be 6 feet apart, you could be outside, and honestly, they were playing in the rain. They were playing in parking garages because you could be under the cover if it rained. They were lining courts on people's patios and in
yeah,
driveways. I mean, just and I had played before the pandemic hit, but
yeah.
not with any regularity and not with any seriousness. And then once that happened, I got this sort of group of the four of us, and we were in a pod. And so we met and the pod thing that was happening.
Yes, yes.
I think about that word. It's so funny to me now. We were in a pod, like a bunch of whales.
I know it's a thing of a time. I think I saw a TikTok of a guy who's like described this event 2125, like 100 years from now. And is like described this TikTok based on the pandemic. And it's a dance, as a TikTok dance to Carol Baskin Keller, like Kill the Husband kind of thing. And it was like just like epic. And it's like people were like explaining, like a kid explaining this era of the time with the panini. We didn't call it pandemic, we called it panini. We had toilet paper shortage. We had TV show that we consume. We had pods.
What?
We basically, it was like social distancing, which I do appreciate the lines of social distancing. I would
Sure.
like to bring it back. But yeah, it's such an era. But pickleball was like the sport of the year, like for 5 years.
Since then, everybody has been playing. The biggest growing age group playing pickleball right now is 18 to 35. People are playing pickleball. It used to be this like retiree sport. It's not. It's a very fast sport. There are professionals out there. It
Yeah.
is there more than I think someone said 52 million. The PPA, the pickleball. What does PPA stand for? Something
Pickleballs.
association, something pickleball. Pro
Pickleball
pickleball.
Professional Association,
That
maybe?
is what it is. And they said, I think 52 million people played pickleball this year in 2025. So, I mean, that's a lot of people. And most of them are 18 to 35. And it's the best because I can get on a court with people who are in their 20s and someone who's in his 80s. And all of us are playing together and laughing and joking. And all of us can play at a certain level and can play well. So it really is amazing to me what a great sport it is socially and physically and for the brain and for friendships. So
That's all right. We got to talk about pickleball runs
yes,
because then you took pickleball and then you're just like, you know what? Let's just bring in some romance here because we gotta love at sports runs, but we gotta love at sports runs, you know, the aspirational sports runs like the hockey and the
right.
football. But pickleball is like actually an entry level sports run that normies can participate. Yes,
Yes,
in your case, you do have someone who is a tennis star, but like normies can participate in this kind of sport.
exactly. And like the last pickleballers was just regular, both of them regular people. And
Yeah.
even in this one, she's just, I mean, she played some tennis in high school, but she really wasn't a pickleball player until she went on this vacation and it ends up being with her ex, who happens to be a pro coach now. So he really
Yeah.
gets her instigated in this. But did you know that one of the number one first dates nowadays is to go play pickleball? So it is so it's so ripe for romance. And the reason is because it's super low pressure. You don't have to be good at it. It's just, it's
Yeah.
almost, it's funny just because one, it's called pickleball. And two, it's a low pressure sport and you can be outside and you can be enjoying something fun with someone. Whether you can be great at it or not doesn't really matter. It's out there to really have a good time. It's a very welcoming community. And it's the kind of thing where it's like speed dating. You play with somebody for 15 minutes and then you move on to the next person and the next person and the next person. And so
Yeah.
you meet people. And so a lot of groups are doing singles meetups for pickleball, and there's a lot of romantic opportunities. So I was thinking when I started to write Pickleballers, the first book, that like I was on the courts and people were saying the funniest things, just like normal things, but they were so funny. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is the place for people to meet like-minded people who want to just have a good time, people who want to have fun. And so that's how Pickleballer started. And then with Pickle Perfect, I sort of took it one step further and I thought, well, not only do we want you to have a good time because you're with someone fun and you're playing pickleball, but how about in an amazing tropical vacation spot? Why not go to Costa Rica? And I lived in Costa Rica for 5 years. I was a teacher there. And during that time, on the weekends, my family and I decided that every other weekend we were going to go on a mini vacation in Costa Rica. So we went all over the country. It's a small country. And we looked up every adventure we could and we did them. I mean, honestly, we went whitewater rafting, we went ziplining, we did rappelling down a waterfall. We ended up crossing a river in our car and the river started sinking our car and filling up our car. I mean, everything happened. But I put a lot of those things into Pickle Perfect, which is the book that's coming
Yeah.
out on October 28th, because I wanted like, well, first of all, it was fun to relive all that. And second of all, it is romantic to be caught in crazy adventures with another person. It bonds you and it's just so thrilling and exciting, as well as romance being new here again. Also, the location was new to both of them.
Yes, I love this. And you narrated the book, so talk to us about the audition process and the narration process, because that's actually like people don't know that you have to audition. You just because you can be good or you want to narrate doesn't mean that you're gonna get the job. So you
Right.
it's on the job.
I was so nervous about that because I really wanted to do it. I mean, I understood somewhere in my brain that there are people who have done this for years and years, and there's probably somebody who could possibly do a better job than I could. But nobody understood these characters like I did. Nobody could portray them in the way that I see them in my head and bring them to life and include the humor and all that sort of stuff that I wanted to come out. And so I asked Penguin Random House if I could send them an audition, and they're like, well, it's fiction and it's not nonfiction, but they were open to it. Usually, if an author's going to read, it's for nonfiction or a autobiography or memoir or something. So very few authors have done their own fiction reading. Although I said, can you send me some of your authors who've done fiction reading so I could hear them before I audition for you? Because I want to go to this thing cold.
Yeah.
So they did, and I listened and I sent them an audition piece for Pickleballers. And they're like, yeah, you can do this. You can do. And I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. And that experience in the studio here in Seattle with a producer who was in LA over Zoom, just being there and giving us direction, and this producer in the booth going, well, let's take that one again. I heard a little clicking noise in there. I was like, oh my God, this is so professional.
Oh my gosh. And
Well, I did it again for Pickle Perfect. And really, to bring those characters to life, some of them I just felt like, oh, these are my new favorite people. I really felt even more connected to some of the people. And oddly, especially some of the smaller characters who I felt the narration, the audio narration gave them a lot more depth that I wasn't as able to do on the page because they just don't get as many words on the page
Mhm.
as the main characters.
I love this. I love this so much. So, listeners, you can always listen to Ilana talk, share their stories on audio, or you can pick the book, paperback or e-copy. Doesn't really matter. We're equal opportunity. But I love this idea of like, you know what? Just putting yourself out there. Like, and they said yes, and guess what?
And
You get to do it.
yes, and exactly.
You get to perform. You get to be a performer of your story.
Yeah, and I missed all that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
really love doing that. And also it adds to sort of the legacy of these books in that this is something that I created entirely, that I had got to have a hand in all pieces. And that was pretty special to me. So,
That is really exciting. So let's talk some book recommendations. What kind of books do you tend to read?
okay, so I read all genres, and I mean all genres, pretty much. I am just an everything reader. But mainly, I read some rom-com, but I love to read science fiction. That's kind of my favorite. And just speculative fiction. I also like humorous murder mysteries.
Yes.
Whenever everyone asks me what I'm reading, I'm always a little bit embarrassed. I'm like, oh,
No, I love this. First of all, I love the resurgence of mystery rom-coms. That's how I call them, which
uh-huh,
are like there's a little bit of romance, there's a romance, and then there's like a mystery. It's not cozy. It's like
right,
some mystery. There's like the stuff, but and some of them have spice and some of them don't have spice, but you just never know what you're gonna get. You know,
right. I
I
love
love a
that.
good murder and then we just had to solve the puzzle and stuff.
And I love it when the characters are so like fun and interesting and quirky. I just
Yeah.
love quirkiness in whatever I read. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's funny because the last book I read was none of the above. The last book that I absolutely loved was called All Fours by Miranda July.
Yes.
And gosh, I listened to it on audio, and this is the author narrating, which was surprising to me at first because I wasn't sure I was going to enjoy that. And as I continued to listen, I really was glad that she was narrating it. It was so intense and interesting and disturbing and moving that we read it with my book club. I have this group of ladies that I have known. We've been together reading books for like 15 years, and we get together and have some wine and have a potluck,
Yeah.
do it once a month. We have ours on Sunday this week. And God, I just love getting their book recommendations and hearing what they want to read. And when they read something that I suggest, they'll either love it or hate it. And this was so funny because I did not recommend this all fours, and it was so diametrically opposed. So like the divergence between who loved and who hated it was very telling in this group of women because they either hated it or loved it. I mean, there was no in between with this book. So I was in the loved it group.
I'm glad. How does your book club picks the books? Like, do you have like a rotating recommendations, or do you just follow like maybe like celebrity book clubs or bestsellers, or like I'm hoping we figure out
It's
how to pick books in the book club setting.
we do a once a year pick, and the pick, since there happens to be 12 of us, everybody gets one pick. And we also have a rule, and the rule is that half can be fiction and half can be nonfiction, which is, I hate that rule because I don't really like to read nonfiction, but I will read nonfiction. So I do read it, but there's people in my book club, and this is so funny to me, that don't really like fiction because they don't like to be surprised or they don't like to be startled or scared or whatever it is. So they'd much rather read nonfiction where they can research ahead of time about the person and then about
I
the
can do my
topic.
homework before reading the
Homework. They're very well prepared ladies, these ladies. And but for me, I really love fiction. So I always say, well, that's fine if we read half nonfiction, but I'm always going to propose fiction. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
That's interesting. That's
that's
interesting. I'm a newer nonfiction, but I realize what I like, and you have to find the right nonfiction, just like you find a fiction. For me, it's pop culture nonfiction. Give it to me. I don't
uh,
do self help. I don't do, but a pop culture, any type of historical, like niche specific things, I'm like down the rabbit hole. I don't do
right,
true crime because it's a little too gory. Again, I
right.
just read mysteries where there's like not gory.
Yes. Yes.
But I need to know, I need to know the end that needs to be fine. Like, everything's gonna be fine. That's why I love romance, because romance has to rule that happily, right?
It's gonna be fine. And same with these humorous, these comic
Yeah.
murder
They,
mysteries.
yeah,
I
they're
read
all gonna be
them.
fine. Nobody's gonna go to jail and nobody's gonna die. Well, Prince is gonna die,
Well, oh,
but
but
the
only the
one does
bad
not care.
people and only the
Yeah.
people. I read Devorah Wong's Unsolicited
Yes.
Advice for Murderers, which I just thought was hilarious. And I read The Thursday Murder Club, and I'm about to read the next one.
Yeah.
And though I just find them so fun and funny. Finley Dodd
You
killing
should
it.
read the Pamela Afton Can So Solve a Murder. And they're actually Amanda Elliott, who publishes
Oh yeah.
rom-coms. She is writing as Bellamy Rose, and they're the Paris Hilton style era's murder mystery set in New York City. It is delightful. And
Oh, that's
then
funny.
the Eleanor Dash, you might like the Eleanor Dash series, which is Everyone Dies on a Vacation or something like that. It's by Catherine.
I know what you're talking about.
No,
Yes.
Catherine Mackenzie actually, she writes, she's not writing as Catherine Mack. Catherine Mackenzie writes like a lot of thrillers and stuff like that. But she started writing this like humorous, not, and they're delightful because she's an author. She's writing the series and you see the situations are she's having. And it's like, she tried to kill her ex-husband because she tried to kill him from the series, but she had to kill him in person. And it's like their own book tour. And it's just great. So
That is one of those ones I would like to write something like that. I really would. And I have a couple of ideas out there. I have some
I
proposals.
think the
That
market is
kind of,
happening. I think
yeah,
if you're looking
it
for
is.
trends, this is like the next market
Oh,
is
I think
like
so.
a
What was
mystery and rom-com and millennial mysteries and stuff.
I and oh, everybody in my family has killed someone. That's a
Yes,
good one
Benjamin
too.
Stevenson. So
Yeah.
then we got the Finley Donovans, Alpha Zamino, who is like
Yes.
long series now. So there's like the market is there.
Yes, for sure.
So awesome. Do you have any books to recommend? I know you talk about July, but I know you thought
Yes, I have. Here's what I want to recommend. I have a few escapist romances,
yes.
rom-coms that I really want to recommend. Okay. The first one is The Wedding Dashers, and it's by Heather McBreen. And this one it's a young woman on her way to a castle in Ireland to go to her sister's wedding. And on the way, she has this unfortunate encounter with this kind of rude guy who it turns out is the groomsman of the same wedding. And it is hilarious. It's like a planes, trains, and automobiles type book where it's just like one mishap after another mishap. This is the kind of romance I love. And each one, both like pushing against each other with frustration and in a pinch coming out to help each other when there's a time of need and pulling each other along and dragging each other back. And it's that push and pull that I love, but that kind of romance that is building with that kind of tension. I think Heather McBreen, who's got another one called Sunk in Love coming out very soon in a couple of months, she has a real gift for not only just creating the scene in this fictional area. Well, it's a real area, but creating a fictional scene around it, but just making the action happen and the events happen so that you are just hanging onto your seat like you're going on a crazy wild roller coaster ride too. So I love that's a good escape. Another one is this Love at First Book, and that is by Jen McKinley. And I'll tell you, this also is what's with me in Ireland, I don't know, but I think it's because it's fall and it's starting to rain, and I've been thinking about this misty outside here in Washington State where we are, where it's very similar. But this one, I just found it so cozy and quaint, and just it takes place in this tiny village at this bookstore where this young woman has come to Ireland to get away from some troubling things that were happening at home. And then she comes in and she is helping this writer finish her series. And she kind of has this relationship, this bantering relationship with the writer's son, who is the manager of the bookshop where she's working at. And it's adorable, but just the descriptions of the weather and the climate and the community kind of is a real cozy escape. And it's very similar to, I don't know if you guys, it's very popular, Emily Henry's Book Lovers, where,
Yes.
yes, where they're both in this quaint little village and they're just the most unlikely people to be together. Just that same
Yes.
grumpy, along with just sharp-tongued and ready to start a fight. I love that kind of interaction where it's almost they're gonna just beat each other up or fall madly in love. You just
Yeah.
don't know which is
We're
gonna.
not sure what's going to happen.
And just the last one I wanted to recommend was The Secret of Orange Blossom Cake by Rachel Linden. And her books are so just full of this, just they're so uplifting and lovely and filled with the idea of community. And she loves that whole travel experience and especially weaving in magical realism and food. And just for me, that is the best. I just love that where it fills out the book with this sense of you get a real sense of place. And this takes place on Lago di Garda, on Lake Garda in Italy. And just the beauty of that place really comes through in this book. And I just love to travel. I came back from just a few weeks ago. I was in Greece and Turkey for my birthday and got to go to Cappadocia, which is this like Martian like setting of an area, and then go up in a hot air balloon over it, look down. It was such an incredible experience. And I want my books to have people like feel these adventures and these escapes. And that's what I love to read and why I recommended these books because they feel like you're going on a trip. And I
Yeah.
love that escape. So,
I love all these recommendations, and I
yeah.
can't wait to hear more about your Turkey trip because we're recording after this. I have a podcast called Turkish TV Obsessed because we watch Turkish TV, like
What?
Turkish shows, and like, because they're great. They're great telenovelas, dramas, like stuff like that. So,
Really?
but I actually love Jen McKinley's book. It's just like, I think it's like the perfect fall. Like, that book is so perfect. And Rachel Linden's The Magical Realism.
Yes.
It's like, first of all, you cannot go hungry.
No, do not eat them.
But it's like,
Don't eat it when
and
you're
then
hungry.
and I know the opportunity to talk with both of them. They're so warm and so caring, and it's like you just want to like just it's a hug in a book. I think that's
Yeah.
what comes down to it. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. So Hannah, tell us where you can find you online. Your
Okay,
website.
so you can find me at my website. It's my name, Ilana Long. .com. So ILANALONG.com. And you also can find me on Instagram at Ilana Long, ILANA, long like short and long, writes, Ilana Long writes on Instagram. And those are the two best places to find me. And also, you can find me in bookstores October 28th because Pickle Perfect comes out on that day. And online, of course, you can get it in bookstores or online. And I can't wait for y'all to read it. Takes place in beautiful Costa Rica, and it's fun, it's funny, it's sexy, it's, as I say, adorkable, and I hope you really like it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, Laura, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there. Are you an author, publisher, or book-related business looking to reach passionate readers? What to Read Next podcast is a perfect place to connect with an engaged audience of romance and mystery lovers who are always on the hunt for their next great read. Now, we're offering sponsorship opportunities. Whether you're launching a new book, promoting an upcoming release, showcasing a bookish product or services, we can help you get the word out. Let's work together to bring your books or businesses to readers who are ready to discover something new. Please visit watchreaditsblog.com/sponsorships to learn more or reach out to chat about the perfect sponsorship or package for you. Thank you much for listening. Your next great reader is waiting for you.